All right. So you considering buying, selling, or maybe even investing a home in the Tampa Bay area, and you're wondering how to find the best real estate agent in Tampa Bay to represent you. Well, today I'm going to share with you my 7 must ask questions when it comes to hiring a real estate agent here in Tampa Bay or anywhere else for that matter. Because let's be honest, everybody, not all real estate agents are created equal, just like every other single profession on this planet, as we're all aware. Hey everyone, Juan Alcala here with the True Living Group in Tampa, Florida. And if this is your first time to the channel, we make videos that are all things Tampa Bay. What it's like to live here, what it's like to work here, what it's like to play here, the food, the dining, the outdoors, the beaches, and the sunshine. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on that little bell. That way you can be notified every time we drop a new video like this. And hey, we're getting calls from people all over the country, just like you, who are considering relocating, moving, or investing in the Tampa area here. And we're getting emails, text messages. Heck, we're even getting direct messages through Instagram. However, you got to get hold of us when it comes to real estate in the Tampa Bay area. We've got your back. All right, so I want to get right into the 7 must-ask questions when it comes to hiring a real estate agent. And number 1, and this one is the most shocking to me. And when I say the most shocking, it's shocking because I don't get asked this question as nearly as much as I would expect to. This is a question that if I were in your shoes and I was looking to hire someone to represent me to either sell my property or buy my property, would be one of the first questions I would ask. And that is the question about, are they active, right? How many houses have you bought and sold with clients this year? And I got to tell you, in 9 years of selling real estate, I have never been asked this question when I was sitting across the table from a potential buyer or seller. I have no idea why, but if I was looking to hire a surgeon to come in and maybe do a knee scope on me, I would definitely ask how long they've been doing this, how long they've been a licensed physician. Do they love their job? There's a litany of questions I'd be asking, but the first one is, how long have you been doing this? Because I got to tell you, I would much rather have the seasoned professional scoping my knee than the person who's just out of residency. And I'm not saying that that person can't be skilled. However, I don't need to be the guinea pig when it comes to that knee surgery. And you don't need to be the guinea pig when it comes to buying and selling real estate. There is just too much on the line to not ask this question. Number 2 is communication. And this question here is a big one. And when I say this, it's big for a lot of reasons, but the number 1 reason it's important is because this communication, as we all know, is one of the most challenging parts of any relationship. And there are a lot of facets when it comes to communication specifically, but there are some key elements of communication that you would want to know for sure, because just like everyone else, you may have a specific style of communication that you prefer. And if the real estate agent across the table from you, or you're considering hiring, doesn't communicate the exact same way, that could lead to frustration. Okay. And as you may or may not know this, but when I heard this the first time, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And it said that unspoken expectations are the death nail of relationships. And as a buyer or seller, if I set the expectation of how I prefer to be communicated with, and how often I want to be communicated with, and what type of communication I prefer, then that's going to make it a lot easier for that person on the other side to really do a good job of making sure that my needs are met. So when it comes to communication, an agent should be asking you those questions, but if they're not, you most certainly want to ask those questions, because if you're someone who prefers text messages and this agent wants to call all the time, well, that's going to be frustrating to you. And there are going to be times, no matter what, in a real estate transaction where you're going to need to pick up the phone and have a conversation with the person on the other side of that line. Because, as we all know, the thing about the written word through text or email is it can be misconstrued or misconveyed. It's hard to articulate how you feel about a certain thing, right? There are times when you come off angry when you were actually in a good mood. And, if you've ever had anybody look at a text message and be like, why did you ask like that? And you didn't mean it that way. It's the same thing. So I would caution you that, even though you may prefer a method, there's still going to be different ways that are communicated. Real estate professionals use email, they use text message, they definitely call. Like I said, I've got agents who prefer to chat through things like Facebook Messenger or Instagram Messenger, and that's okay. Because I also have had that conversation with them when like, hey, when I actually pick up the phone, that means we really got to have a conversation. And just setting that expectation, I assure you, will make your life much, much simpler. And it's going to make for a much better overall real estate experience for you. Number 3, and this one is also extremely important, organization. Is the person that you're considering hiring to sell your largest asset, or one of them, an organized person? Are they organized professionally? Are they organized personally? These are important questions that you want to ask and you need to know, because I don't know if any of you have ever experienced this before, but maybe you have a family member or a friend or a coworker or an associate of some sort that is a little bit forgetful. And they've been given opportunities to do, certain tasks or jobs within the family, or, maybe it's the PTA or whatever it is. And, maybe they've dropped the ball, and it's not because their heart's in the wrong place. We all know that people make mistakes. We got to have some grace somewhere, but maybe they didn't write things down, or they weren't well organized. And this is important because when it comes to real estate is extremely litigious. And what I mean by litigious means that people love to sue each other revolving around real estate when mistakes are made. And the reason that happens is because every time a house is bought and sold, the statistics show that there's roughly about $50,000 that exchanges hands from all of the ancillary services involved, meaning title and mortgages and everything else under the sun. And that goes on for years. It's not just at the point of transaction, right? There's interest and all those other things, right? So every single real estate, transaction equals about $50,000. Well, we also know that the sellers and the buyers are exchanging thousands of dollars too. So if there's an opportunity to get in where money's moving and cause problems, it's here. So having an agent that's well organized, that's going to represent you, is extremely important. Ask them. You can ask questions like this: what type of systems do you use to ensure that nothing falls in the cracks? Okay, where every single time there's a handoff between a different person or a different entity handling my real estate transaction, that I know that the ball's not getting dropped there, because those are where the opportunities are for contracts to come apart, or for mistakes to be made. And the last thing that you want to do is end up in court because someone wasn't well organized and they missed something on your contract, or they just weren't well organized to remember something correctly and then they misspoke on your behalf. That is not a place you want to be, y'all. So make sure that your agent is organized. Ask those types of questions. All right, that moves us on to number 4 on our list of 7 must-ask questions when hiring a real estate agent. And number 4 is a question of value. And this is one that I would expect to get more often. I have had people ask it of me, but it doesn't happen as often as I think it would. And the question is, why should I hire you versus any other realtor in the market? And this is a great question. And the reason why I like it so much is because it typically will put someone on their toes. And what I mean by that is, when you're asking tough questions of someone you're interviewing to sell the largest asset that you probably own, or to purchase the largest asset that you're going to acquire, you definitely want to make sure that that person is equipped in their negotiation skills, which we're going to get to in a minute here. But it's super important that they can articulate their value in the marketplace to you as a home seller or you as a home buyer confidently enough and convincingly enough that you're willing to work alongside of them? This is a great question to ask because it also will give you some clarity on the client experience. Hey, if you can't articulate why that you're going to serve me at a higher level than anybody else in the marketplace, then why would I choose you? That's what you're really asking as a client here. And it's a great one to ask. So don't leave this one on the table. It's a good one. It doesn't matter whether you pull it out at number 1 or number 7. This is a great tool to put in the toolkit. Number 5, and this one's a huge one, negotiation. This one it can be challenging if you're someone who is not used to negotiating. And I mean, if you've got a significant other, or heck, if you've even got a cat, you're probably used to negotiating at some level. But when it comes to your largest asset, and we may be talking about hundreds of thousands, we may be talking about millions, when it comes to these types of transactions, you want to make sure you have somebody that is representing you that has the skill set and the business acumen to be able to chop it up with the best of them, y'all. These people, these professionals that you're going to hire, they are there to represent you. So I want to give you a couple scenarios. Let's say that in scenario A, that you're a buyer and it's today's market, which right now, the best properties in Tampa Bay are still going for multiple offers. They're still going over asking. They're still going without inspections, and they're selling in hours, if not days. That is happening. And if you're a buyer in that scenario, one of the questions that I would ask if I'm entertaining bringing a real estate professional into my world is, hey, in a multiple offer situation, giving them an example, let's say there's 5 offers we're competing against. What are you going to do? How are we going to position my offer as the best offer to that seller and to that listing agent so we can win this deal? That's a great question to ask if you're considering pulling on a buyer's agent. Let's flip it over and go with scenario B. You're the seller. You know that you have the best property on the market because you've asked your real estate professional. They gave you great guidance. You've made some improvements, or you didn't have to because you just did a reno on the home, or whatever the scenario is. But you know, based upon their professional opinion, that you've got one of the best properties in the market and it should sell for top dollar in a very short period of time. And you are expecting multiple offers. One of the questions you want to ask that listing agent is, hey, let's say we get 10, 15, 20 offers. And I know this sounds crazy, but we had offers this summer of 25 to 30 offers for a single property. And I assure you that when that is happening, if you do not have a organized agent, which was number 4, working, someone who has systems in place in order to be able to absorb all of that information and present it to you in a way that makes sense. Because remember, your real estate professional has to read every one of those contracts, understand every one of those contracts, and present it to you in a way that you can understand. Some of my clients are, attorneys, and they have no problem going through that information. I have other clients that don't want to read the contracts at all. And if we're talking about 25 or 30 offers, it's a big deal. And we point back to organization because of this. If an agent that you're working with gets overwhelmed with 3 or 5 offers, how are they ever going to handle 10, 15, 20, 30 offers on your behalf and make sure that you're getting the best price, that you're getting the best terms, that you are going to have the least amount of headaches, and that they're going to get you to that closing table? Because there is so much more involved than listing a property, putting a sign in the yard, and putting it up on Zillow. Y'all, this goes deep. There are way too many opportunities for things to go wrong. And that leads me to my next scenario here, and we're going to call it scenario C, where, ask the agent, hey, can you tell me a time when things didn't go well and you were able to salvage the deal? What did that scenario look like? And I'll give you an example. I had a client this past year. We were listing their home the first weekend. They poked their head up in the attic right before they left for showings for the weekend, and they found out that the home was full of mold and mildew and in the attic space. And man, that is one of those absolute deal breakers for a lot of people, because they are seriously concerned about their health, right? It can affect your skin. It can affect your immune system. You don't want to be playing around with mold and mildew. And we were able to not only keep the deal together, but position it to where, the seller was able to remediate it and it didn't kill them. Because if that property would have had to go back to the market, it would have had to have disclosed that there was mold and mildew issue. And I assure you, even though it had been remediated, that there are a ton of buyers who would not even go look at the property because it was disclosed that there was mold and mildew in the past and it had to be fixed. So that's exactly the type of scenario I'm talking about. So make sure your agent has the ability to negotiate through challenges, because as we all know, when things are going great, it's easy to be a winner, right? When things get challenging, what can you do, or what are you going to do to really distinguish yourself between you and someone else? All right, so that gets us to number 6, and that's honest. And this can kind of seem like, well, how do you find out if an agent's honest outside of giving them a lie detector test, which you can't do, right? But there's a few different ways, and I want to give you some questions that could probably help in that manner. One of the things you can do is you can look up the reviews while the agent is with you at the table, or you're on Zoom, or whatever it is, however you got to get hold of people today. And you can look up the reviews and look through them. And now, there's a couple things that I would say right away is, if a real estate agent doesn't have reviews, then go back to question number 1, which is, are they active? Are they selling? Because if they're not selling properties and the average agent is selling less than 6 homes a year, that's a red flag for you as a homeowner. Okay, so keep that in mind. But let's say that they do sell a lot of properties, because you can see that in their history, and a good listing agent will present to you how many homes a year they sell, and you can look that up. It's public information. Let's say they're not getting reviews. Well, that'd be one question I would ask, like, hey, why aren't these clients reviewing you? Because maybe they just don't think it's important. And that's okay if you feel comfortable with everything else. But I would definitely ask that question. And what I would really be looking for is when someone was unhappy with their service. Because just like we were discussing in negotiations, when things aren't going well, how did they respond? Because let's say that for whatever reason that something happens during your home sale or your home purchase and things aren't going great. Well, if you're just now learning that this person responds really poorly to any stress, it could be a very tumultuous relationship to finish off here. And that's the last thing you want. So it's a great question to ask. And a lot of the times you can ask people, hey, what happened here? And they can give you an explanation that you're comfortable with and you're ready to move forward on, which is awesome. But the other thing that I will keep in mind when it comes to reviews too, is we all know there's keyboard cowboys out there, y'all. So give some grace too, because honestly, you can go to Google right now and leave a review about any business that you've never even been inside of. And that business owner can't take it down, which is completely unfair, but that's the way the world works. So what I will say is ask good questions. And if you're comfortable with the answer that you've gotten, roll with it. And it's a great way to see how someone responds, but it's also a way to learn how to trust somebody. Because again, just because you're meeting somebody for the first time, let's just put you in that scenario. Let's say this agent was referred to you from a friend of a friend, which means you really don't know this person. You got to build trust in order to move forward with any kind of relationship. And, selling real estate is a business relationship. But the other thing too is just because you've known somebody forever doesn't make them the best person for the job, right? And just because you haven't known somebody for a while doesn't mean that they're not the best person for the job. So what I will say is ask great questions, and that's why we're providing them to you today, so it can help you with that process. But also get your questions answered in a way that you feel comfortable and confident with moving forward. That way you know that you're covered and you can trust this person. All right, you've made it all the way to number 7, and this is by far one of the most important questions we are going to ask, and that's why we left it for last. And I would love if you do me the honor, if you're receiving value from this video, please hit the subscribe button and also hit the like button. That way other people can find this video too and hopefully receive the value that you've received today. So let's get back into number 7 here. And this one is about being a team player. And this may sound like, well, Juan, how is that important? And I'm going to walk you through why in a second here. Because as a listing agent or a buying agent, remember, there are 2 sides to every home sale, right? And most of the time, it's not the same agent representing both sides. Some states, it's not legal. Here in Florida, it is legal. But most of the time, that's not how it happens. It's probably 95% or above that it's two different real estate professionals on each side of the table. And do you think that it could be important for me to have a great relationship if you're the buyer with the listing agent on the other side? Or if I'm representing you as the seller, would it be a good idea for me to have quality relationships with the agents who are bringing buyers to the table? Not so we can be buddy and work against you, but so I can know and confidently give you counsel that I have worked with this professional before. They are a professional. They will do what it takes to get their client to the table with the least amount of headaches and fulfilling their obligations contractually. So you don't have to stress out about that. That's important. The other thing you want to look at is if you're the seller or you're the buyer, jump in the agent's shoes. If you've hired the real estate agent where when they pick up the phone and your agent's name comes across this, that's my wife and my daughter, by the way. And the agent's name comes across and the listing agent is like, not again. Do you think that they want to accept your offer? No, they don't want to work with that agent. And here's the challenging part. As a real estate professional, I have to present all the contracts to my clients, and I have to represent the client in a fiduciary manner, meaning that I am responsible for you just like if you were my mother, my brother, my sister. And that's a great thing. But if I don't have good relationships with the other side, then just like any other family member who becomes a black sheep, the last thing you want to do is deal with those people. So if you get in a situation where you're in multiple offers again, and you know that, or you hired the agent that is a headache, it could hurt your chances of getting your offer accepted. And that is not what you want. And I'm not saying that the agent is not going to entertain your offer, because it's not up to the agent, it's up to the sellers, right? But what I will say is they're going to give that seller counsel. And what they're going to say is, you know what? That agent doesn't answer their phone. And we're in a contract where time is of the essence, and that's important. Or, you're the buyer's agent and I'm representing you as the buyer, right? I'm the buyer's agent representing you. And I know that listing agent doesn't ever answer their phone. Well, you as a seller should be very upset to know that a buyer came through, they had cash and they couldn't get in your property over the weekend because your agent took the weekend off, didn't communicate it with you, and didn't communicate with the agent. And think of it this way. If you start seeing feedback that comes through the electronic system and it says agent won't answer their phone, do you think they're going to communicate with you on a regular basis either? That's a giant red flag. So I would say be very mindful. You are looking for team players. You can even ask the agent, hey, if we were to call the last 5 agents that you sold or bought houses with, what would they have to say about your skill set and your professionalism? That's a great question, because you can go look that up too. That is also public information. And I think it would be very useful for you. So I hope that all of these questions help you hire the absolute best real estate agent in Tampa, Florida. And hey, if you're looking to move, relocate, or invest in Tampa, Florida, me and my team here at the True Living Group have your back. And hey, I know what questions that I should expect. I've got a whole list of other questions that if you would like to use them, feel free, because maybe you're not moving to Tampa. Maybe you saw this video for whatever reason. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be more than happy to connect you with those questions or connect you with any of our agent partners all across the country. And again, however you got to get hold of us, whether it's text message, phone, DM, Instagram, whatever it takes when it comes to moving to Tampa, Florida, we here at the True Living Group have got your back. And until next time, go out and live that Tampa life.